Good evening. How are you guys doing? Woo, it's one of those days. I've had a lot going on today. Give me 1 second. Hello, satin baby doll. Okay. All right. Let's see. Today we're gonna recap last night's episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville, season 10, episode 3. And the name of the episode was More or Less. More was spelled Maur, or Less the Favorite. So, More or Less the Favorite. It was a good episode to me. I think it laid the foundation for a lot of what we're going to see this season. I think it gave a lot of answers because now we get to see storylines of the people involved in the show versus storylines of people who they were just given to them by social media or based on someone else's issues. We've done that over the last few years. Hello, Miss Alicia. Hello, Shop Reality TV. It's so good. Thank you guys for joining me on a Sunday evening. I'm not in my office space. I am downstairs. So I'm sitting in my living room with the door open. So if you hear some noise, it's probably my daughter coming back through the door because she left out. It's been quiet all day. The minute I came down here and started chilling, people start stirring around. So, well, I say all day since I've been home from church. So if you ignore all the noise, if you hear somebody coming in the door, it's just gonna be a quick come through, tap tap tap, and hopefully they'll get out of here. Because no one normally comes into the living room, this formal living room area. Anywho, let's get started. I hope you guys had a great Sunday. Today, my Sunday's been great. It started out great. Went to church this morning. My pastor preached an awesome word. Oh my God, it was an awesome word. One that was needed. Definitely, I needed it. I needed to hear it. So I hope that everybody, whatever you did today, that so far it's been great. Because at the church we went out to eat, and dinner was it was so good. My brother even decided to join us after church, and I'm always appreciative of that. Let me put up my little banner. Everything in this video is copyrighted material. If I put up a video of somebody else, which I probably just do, maybe some short excerpts. This video uses copyrighted material strictly for purposes of commentary, criticism, and education. Under the Section 107 of the Copyright Act, this qualifies as fair use. All right, let's get on into the review. I hope I spoke to everybody. Hello, Shayna. Thanks for joining. Hello, Sparkle. I see you left me a message earlier. Thanks for coming in. Hello, Living for Me. I'm so glad you guys came and joined me, y'all. I'm just getting started. I've had this YouTube channel since I think 2008. It's been a long time. I've never done anything on it. I think I used to post videos of my kids, but I made them private when they were in high school and doing things. So this channel's just been sitting here idle. I just been watching stuff on YouTube. Hello, Symmetry. Our church message today was, "It is only a test. Trouble don't last always." Now that's a fact. Trouble does not last always. My pastor actually, when I tell you he went back into the Old Testament, he came out of Leviticus, then he went over into Deuteronomy, and his title was Breaking Generational Curses. And when I tell you he broke down the scriptures, that even a fool couldn't err if they even tried to. So again, I hope that everybody who went to church, watched church on TV, whatever you did today, that it was something productive and something that you could utilize throughout your week. If you don't mind, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you don't like me, I don't know what that issue is, but if you like me, give me a thumbs up. And like, share, and subscribe if you don't mind. I greatly appreciate it. Last night, again, I watched Love and Marriage Huntsville. I watched it, but then I went back and rewatched it this morning before church. Because I'd have to sing this morning on the praise team. So I was like, this is a perfect time to watch the episode where I'm not interrupted, because last night seemed like the phone kept ringing, so I kept getting interrupted. But it was a good episode, I'll say that. The show started off opening with what we ended with last week, Marquez and Ken fighting. And I don't know. I think Marquez gets a kick out of pushing buttons, and maybe he does it unintentionally. I'm not certain what his issue is, but Marquez said, "You better stop that." And when he stopped it seemed like when he said that, Ken seemed like he snapped, and that kind of kicked everything off. And his son ran downstairs, which I did not like. Did not like the fact that they were fighting, and then the son was there to witness all of that. And that kid said that it got physical, so I guess maybe there was some contact made, but all we saw was kind of looked like Marquez was kicking something around or knocking something over. And if you looked at the scene, there was papers all over the floor. So I'm not sure what all transpired, but there was like pink paper, black paper all over the floor. It looked like probably the one of the producers may have had some papers, looked like maybe he had dropped them. I'm not sure where the papers came from. There were a lot of papers in the floor. And I put that perhaps they need a mediator. And I don't know what that may look like. I'll discuss it more as I go through my commentary or my recap. But later in the show, Ken said that they really have never had an issue with Marquez until now because he's never been around, which I think is kind of telling. But then again, also different, very different. The next scene was Kimmy calling Tisha, and she was inviting her to dinner. And apparently she invited all the ladies to dinner that are cast members of the show. She said she invited Destiny, but Destiny had a TikTok. She was doing a TikTok live, and I believe it was like her very first TikTok live. So she did not go to dinner, but again, she called and invited everybody to dinner. Kimmy said this is her annual effort at gathering the ladies together for a temperature check. So, as we all know, that everybody on most reality TVs, TV shows, they have a spot where they, my daughter's coming back in, so it's get noisy. They kind of have to do something, a party or host something, some type of event. So I guess this is maybe part of whatever she's going to host for the season. Kimmy Maurice actually, she said, are having a date night in the backyard. I thought it was cozy and it was kind of cute. They gathered around the fire pit with blankets. And Kimmy said she felt like Jalen, her son, was her best friend. Like her, she said he was like her little friend, is what she said, like her little bestie, my little friend. And I thought that was kind of cute because as your children become adults, you do want them to kind of, you want to be able to have a better relationship with them and them be a little bit closer to you. Kimmy said, do you feel like Kimmy was being shady when she made the TikTok? I didn't. I think she was just given, to me, it seemed like she was given awareness of where Destiny was, that she didn't try to exclude her from the gathering, that she was busy. I think that's what I took it as. She was just telling where she was now. If something else throughout the season shows up, then maybe we could say she was being shady. But I think at this point, I think she was just saying, letting everybody know that, Destiny was invited. She just had something else to do and did not make it. Kimmy said that the kids had reservations about them having a family business. And Maurice was like, why? And she said, because you're a dictator. Said Maurice, he said, y'all don't want to work with me because of the rules. And Kimmy responded, no, that's not it at all. She said, it's because you talk a lot. You work a little and you talk a lot. And I really felt like in this episode, we saw more of Maurice's character flaws, right? What do you mean that's the narrative symmetry? The narrative about Destiny? Is that what you mean? Explain it to me, because I want to make sure we're on the same page. But yeah, I think this episode showed that Maurice was not perfect and that he had okay. Um that he does have some character flaws. And so um I don't know if I'm here for it, but I think it's something we should see. We all have character flaws. But in years past, again, we've had another storyline that was so big that it actually took away from anybody else's storyline. So I'm excited to see the new storylines, excited to see these personalities and how they're actually going to fit these storylines together. Um And you could tell there was like some editing between the conversation about the family business and working together, because they go straight into a conversation about Jalen. She said that Jalen said he didn't look at Maurice as a father figure. He looked at him more as a mentor or a homeboy. Well, not even a homeboy. He said it as a mentor. Said Jalen said Maurice never made him feel like a son. And yeah, Jalen said he felt like Maurice was more as a homeboy and Marsal was more of a father figure. I found that very interesting. And I'm not really sure why I found it so interesting, but I did. I found the fact that that Jalen sees Marsal as a father figure interesting. I don't know why. And I will explain why I say I found it interesting. I was glad to see Kimmy speaking up about how she felt about Mark. Me too. I really was. And I think sometimes as women, especially when we marry men, we tend sometimes to allow them to take the leader position, regardless of whatever their character flaws is. And in the vein of doing so, sometimes children are the sacrifice for that. And that may not always be it's not always at all a good thing. So I really feel like Kimmy speaking up now on TV about something that happened to her son that may have been when he was a teenager or as he was growing up kind of got me looking at her a little funny too, because I ain't gonna never choose between a man and my kid. That ain't gonna never happen. Maurice felt slighted by that comment, and he also said it felt like a gut punch. Right? He said he would have loved to have that kind of impact on Jalen. So he would have loved, I guess, to have been a father figure to Jalen versus feeling like a homeboy. And Maurice said he wants to talk to Jalen. What are you saying, Satin Baby Doll? Let's read. I was glad to see Kimmy speaking up about I've already said that. I thought there was symmetry. That was Satin Baby Doll. I'm sorry. Calling out the wrong names. Next thing, Chris and Nell in their kitchen. They always in that kitchen eating some Wingstop or getting Wingstop prepared for dinner out of the packages onto plates. She talked about a class she's taking. She's taking a class for a certification for quality stars. I was intending to look that up to see what quality stars are. In fact, let me see what that is. I got my trusty cellular device here. Alabama quality stars for early education. Let's see what those are. Okay. So it's actually based through the Alabama Department of, looks like Health and Human Resources or Health and, let me see, make sure I got this right. It is through the Alabama Department of Human Resource. And this is how they rate daycares, which is a good thing, I guess. So the higher your rating is, the more or the better you are with, I guess, daycares. Your standing is a little bit higher. I know that I'm not sure if they do it anymore because I've been out of long-term care so long. But back in the day in long-term care, roughly about 20 years ago, they used to do a rating system like I think it was like 1 to 5, and they kind of, by that rating was how they judged like if this was a good nursing home, a long-term care facility to put your loved one in. So I'm sure that's the same thing. In my state, it's called Step Up to Quality. So okay. Shanna, that is a good thing to know, because when she kept saying, I was like, quality stars was, but I'm not in early education, so of course I wouldn't know that, but I was intending to look it up before I went live because I wanted to address it as well. So thank you for that, because I'm sure every state calls it something different, but I guess it's like a rating system for the particular daycare. Chris did say it was very important that they got that certificate for the daycare center. And then Chris talked about their businesses in a confessional. He said they have a real estate company, a daycare center called Growing Smiles, a cleaning company called Crystal Clear Cleaning. And then Neil goes into talking about the classes that she's taking for the certification for the daycare. With more stars, you receive more funding, which makes a lot of sense because it will increase your status. So I definitely get that. And it also shows that you've done the work of getting the certifications, kind of like hospitals having JCO certification. It kind of determines your funding as well from Medicare and Medicaid. Nell mentions that Kimmy had called her to ask her to go out to talk because they haven't talked in a while. And Nell thinks that Destiny misses her. I mean, they go over to this conversation about Destiny had called her, and or she hadn't talked to Destiny in a while, I believe is what it was said. I didn't put that in my notes, but she said she believed that Destiny misses her. I thought that was kind of weird, but okay. And then Chris says, do you think it's because you're Miss Nail? And she said, yes. She said, and I'm a very level-headed person when it comes to other people's problems. And I put in my comments, what the what? I guess you could be level-headed with other people's business versus your own business, but girl, if you like it, I love it. In fact, I'm gonna give Miss Neil one of girl, stop. Girl, stop. Because that was a little bit too much. Neil said that she has canceled Destiny in the past, which kind of made me raise an eyebrow. Like, girl, you've done what? Because didn't you say you canceled Mel? And Mel said you did. I don't know what Miss Mams is over there doing. And I put in my notes, here we go again. Neil revisits the fact that Destiny said she had to reevaluate their friendship because of Sunny. And I thought that was a little bit telling, because how do I want to say this? Neil seemed like she kind of felt slighted by that. But I think if she took herself out of her own, whatever she's got going on, and put herself in Destiny's position, I believe she would understand that more. To me, what Sunny did was kind of snake-like. So I think if someone is doing snake-like behavior and you choose to invite this person doing the snake-like behavior in my presence, I believe it will make me want to reevaluate my friendship with you as well. And I think that's fair. And I think for Neil to not think it was fair is kind of absurd. Neil wants to know what did Destiny need to evaluate, because she's been there for Destiny too. So I don't know if Neil thought she was being there for Sunny. And I don't know. She didn't elaborate on it enough for me. I thought it was, again, kind of weird that she brought that up. Maybe she's grasping at straws for a storyline. I don't know. Nell said that her relationship with Destiny was kind of shaky, and she thinks it's because of the relationship that Destiny had with Lance. And then she made a comment, said, you've been just as wrong as he is. And I put, girl, what? Girl, what? Y'all put in the comment what y'all think of in the comment section, what y'all think about that very comment that you've been just as wrong as Lance has. Lance got a whole baby. I believe Destiny said she was celibate. So I'm not sure what exactly Nell's issue is. Maybe the very fact that maybe Destiny was dating other men. I'm not really sure what I'm not sure what she meant by that, but I did find that a little bit strange. And I put in my comments, I think Chris and Nell are forcing the scene. This conversation about Destiny was so unnecessary. That wasn't necessary. I really believe, again, to me, it's almost as though she was grasping at straws. So first you talk about her wanting to reevaluate your relationship because you chose to have Sunny at your bridal shower, and then you said you think she misses you. Then you say that you think that there was an issue with the relationship. Your relationship with Destiny was shaky because she had been with Lance, or because of the relationship she had with Lance. I don't know. I don't know where Nell was going with this, because you've given us three things that you think was the reason why you have a relationship that's shaky with Destiny, but it didn't make any sense. I'll put that like that, because you can't be thinking that, okay, it's an issue because of Sunny, then it's an issue because her and Lance had a relationship that didn't work out, and then you think it's an issue because, or you feel like she's just as wrong, and it just as wrong because of what? She should have elaborated, because it made her look kind of weird. Because I feel like you really needed to get to the point of what you wanted to say about that, and she didn't make a clear point. I like Lance too, Satin Baby, though. I think he's a handsome guy. It's unfortunate that he's maybe a little thoughtish. I don't know. But yeah, I think he's a handsome guy. And I really think he's probably going to be good for the show too, as well. I think having the Fletcher family on there is going to be good for the show. I just need Nell to either calm down, find a path and ride in it, maybe tell us about things going on in her life versus trying to make an issue with someone else. That's just my personal opinion. It doesn't mean anything here nor there, but that's just, kind of what I think. I think that she just probably should go ahead and try to figure out her own path on this show with a storyline versus storyline that is about someone else. Yeah. Trying to say the distance. Oh, I didn't see that Satin Baby doll. Girl, remember I need to put my glasses back on. I think she's trying to say the Destiny was in the streets. Like, yeah. Yeah, I think so too. But it's very unfortunate that that she would say that. Yeah, Nell is doing, when I say she's doing too much, she's doing way too much. And it's not making her have a good look. So I really wish she would take all of that energy she's putting into whatever she's trying to tell us, tell us about others, and put it into whatever she got going on. The next scene was the ladies they meet up at the restaurant. It's Nell, Trisha, Tisha, and Kimmy. Destiny had a TikTok event and was busy. Nell comes in looking very Western, and they all clue in, they zero in on it. The hat, the outfit. She wasn't looking bad, but she definitely looked like she was getting ready to go to a boot scooting contest. I almost said something else, but I know you got to be careful with the wording around here. But I definitely believe she thought she was going to a boot scooting contest. Yeah, she's Sad Baby Doll. She's always doing way too much. And I felt like the conversation about Destiny was just way too much. Kimmy wanted to discuss how they could get to know each other better. Trisha said um, she needs to grow her relationship with the other ladies. She did. She Nell's always yeah. I'm sorry, I've already read that again, but yeah, Nell. Um, even in this part, kind of got a little jazzy, very defensive. So I'm not sure. It's like almost like she's hiding something, but I don't know. Trisha said she needed to grow her relationship with the other ladies. She said there's always a block with the group, and they're not always fully transparent. Um, Trisha started the conversation about Ken and Marquez um, getting to know each other. She talked about Marquez, and I put blah 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 because that's about how much I care about that. I really feel like them discussing Marquez is just a waste of time. It's just fluff. Get a divorce, girl. That's pretty much all I want to say. She said that she did tell the group, the ladies, that Ken and Marquez had started tussling because he had just walked into their home, and Tisha Scott said, that was rude. And we talked about that last week. We definitely agreed, well, this week about last week's episode, that it's rude just to walk into someone's home without waiting for them to open the door or say come in. Kimmy was talking about Maurice. She talked about how Maurice was very hands off when it came to parenting. And I think this season we're actually going to see more of that, how hands off he was. I remember, hello, Kishore, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us. I remember when he wanted Monster to come there, and you know what, Sam Baby Doll, I think that is something that has to be explored. I don't know why she doesn't want a divorce from him, because I don't see what we talked about this earlier in the week, what he may have brought to the table. Maybe it was benefits, maybe it was, I don't know, security, some type of security. But she should want to get rid of him. If you dislike him that much, if he pushes all your buttons, you should have already filed for divorce. I'm not sure how long they've been separated, but it's been some years, I believe. Child, no, ma'am. When Kimmy was talking about Maurice and Jalen, Tisha spoke up and said that Jalen should help create the relationship with Maurice. My take on that is Maurice came into Jalen's life when he was a minor, right? So you're with the mom, and this kid is a minor. I believe that door should have been opened up by Maurice and not Jalen. Maybe as an adult, they could start fostering a relationship that may be better. But I believe as a minor, that relationship should have been fostered by Maurice and not by Jalen. So Tisha Scott, I can't believe you said that. You have boys. You have a boy. You have two girls. I know you don't have a foster parent with them. I mean, a step parent, excuse me, with them. But you really should kind of sit back and just evaluate, because I believe Tisha had a step parent. I think that her mom has a husband and he's not her dad. So, um, I just really think sometimes you have to give people grace where they are. And as a child, he may not have known how to navigate a relationship with his stepfather. That means that the two parents, the mom and the stepdad, should have fostered that relationship and cultivated it as well as fostered it. The lady said that Nell left LA, which I'm thinking must have been after the reunion, without them getting together to go out that night. I think everybody else we saw pictures on Instagram of them all going out and hanging out after the reunion, but we didn't see Nell a part of it. And Nell says the reason why was she got word that Lance was having a baby while she was there. And so they had to get back to Alabama. And so Trisha mentions that Chris was having a baby too. And I found it weird. I don't know if anybody else did, that Trisha started like answering for Neil. Like they at the same time, and then Neil was like, "Oh, it wasn't at the same time." I just thought that was kind of weird. And I put that in my notes. Trisha was answering for Neil, and it was weird. Neil said there was something that she and Destiny went through. Then they flip over and start talking about um Destiny and she not being there. And they, I guess, wanted to make sure that no one had any issues with anybody if the group could move forward. Neil said there was something she and Destiny went through that caused her to have a red flag against Destiny. I don't know what that could have been. Maybe she's talking about the red flag of Sunny, or the fact that Destiny was flirting with other guys. I don't know. Let's see what Sam Baby Doll says. Nell claims she didn't know that Lance was having a baby, which was weird. I thought that was weird too. Like, girl, but I don't know. I don't know. Could your son have a child and you not? How many kids does Lance have? And maybe he was afraid to tell them about another kid. Maybe sometimes their parents are fussy. Maybe didn't want to hear her fuss. I don't know. Again, I thought it was crazy. Neil said, as they were talking about it, I think Tisha kind of spoke up, but the red flag against Destiny is something that I really wish she had told him what it was. What is this something? Or you're just being weird towards Destiny? Things have to make sense, right? Did Destiny do something to you? Is it something you can't speak on? I don't know. And then Nell said she felt like Tisha Esquire had a lot of questions for her. She also had some questions for them. Even though Tisha was asking the question, she meant she was getting ready to give it to Kimmy too, which I thought was crazy. Oh, so he has two other children. I knew he had one other. So this made baby number 3. So, sometimes mommies and daddies be like, you better not have no more kids, da, 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 da. Depends on the circumstances. If they've had to maybe help support the kids. I'm not sure. But yeah, beautiful baby. Babies are a blessing. So hopefully he makes enough money to support his own child. But the baby's going to the daycare that his mom has, so it can't, there has to be some type of support there. So I don't know. So after Nell says that she has some questions for them, she busts out and says she wants to know how Kimmy and Tisha felt about the accusations that Martell had against her husbands. Tisha turned it around. She said, "How do you feel about it?" I thought that was hilarious, baby. How you feel? Because you asking me, and I already said what I need to say. Nell said in her confessionals, wait a minute, I feel like something's in my eye. Let's see. They asked Nell how she felt about it. And she said she was blown back by it. So I guess the very fact that he said it kind of blew her back. Then Nell goes into a confessional. Now she didn't say it in front of them. She went in her little confessional and said, "Oh, she felt like it was a deflection," but she answered the question. So, girl, it was a deflection or not? Because if you felt like it was a deflection, I would have said, "Well, that sounds like a deflection," but instead she answered the question. Girl, Nell about to get this again. Girl, stop. Doing way too much. You're just doing way too much, Miss Nell. Way too much. Neil said he was messing with the female off and on for 5 years, and Lance. Oh, she did say that. Do I think Lance didn't know she was pregnant? I don't think so. I believe Lance knew she was pregnant. Lance just told him. I believe You mess with somebody off and on. Okay, I'm gonna put this down for a minute. You mess with somebody off and on for 5 years. 5 years you've been hitting it and quitting it, hitting it and quitting it, right? So you telling me in 9 months you hadn't tiptoed over there. Then because it takes 40 weeks to incubate a baby. Yeah, you knew, buddy. We ain't gonna play dumb. We can play stupid. We ain't gonna play retarded. That's what Neil said. Is Neil telling the truth? I wonder that too. Okay. So I got a visitor come creeping through here, tiptoeing. Let's see. Kimmy said she laughed because it was so unbelievable. We're talking about them. He knew and he was exactly. Symmetry. We here, baby. We here. He knew because he been hitting that while he was talking to Destiny. So all along this time, he knew he had a baby coming. I just don't believe that he did not know. I just do not believe that he did not know. So back to the question when Neil asked about Martell talking about the Scott boys, the Scott brothers. Kimmy said she laughed because it was so unbelievable. And then they talked about Letitia's live with Carlos King. Well, actually, Trisha mentioned it, and Tisha responded. I did a live with my husband. My husband and I did a live, and we talked about it. If you want to know how I feel, go watch the live. I was like, yes, tell him, girl. She said, then Tisha said, you won't be creating a storyline for me. And then Tisha said she feels like she's an open book. She also said there are things about Nell that are floating around on the streets, but she ain't calling her out on it. Girl, do you speak on what you want to speak on? And I totally agree with Tisha with that. When there are rumors out here about you, and yet you want to come over here and tell me, ask me about a rumor with Martell, and I know you saw the live we did on Instagram. That's pretty much what Letitia Scott was telling her. I know you saw that live that me and my husband did on Instagram. We've addressed this. We're going back over this. And I kind of think this is the Tisha we want to see, one to stand her ground. Chris on national TV telling a whole lie about the NDA. We all exactly. That's what I was like. Does he think we're in a twilight zone? I cannot stand people who want to rewrite history. Excuse me, y'all. Because we saw it. We saw what you said about the NDA, and I took it that you literally meant that it sounded like it was Maurice and Marsal and not anyone else. So, child, Chris Fletcher, go on with it. Nell couldn't wait to exactly. Sam Baby Doll, she couldn't wait to sit at that table. She was probably itching to do it from the beginning, but they were talking about other stuff. But as soon as she got a chance to do it, she threw it out there. It was probably sitting in the reservoir in the card section to throw in there. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of wild. But just like Letitia told her, she said, "Girl, do you speak on what you want to speak on? Don't speak on me, cause I got me. You speak on your mess." Then Letitia said she felt like if any of them had a problem with each other, they should voice it with that person. Don't talk about it behind their back, and then it gets back to that person. Don't talk about it with other people, and then it flip around, and then it gets back. Oh, she was over talking about you. And they all agreed that they would not do that. Then Nell said, "I'm not holding." All of a sudden, everybody, Latricia. Is her name Latricia? I think it's Latricia. Latricia said, I agree. In fact, she used the expletive with it. She's like, I agree. And And then all of a sudden, here comes Nell out of the blue, screaming, I'm not holding a grudge with anyone at this point. I've released every damn thing. She said, now I may have a choice. I have a choice of words to say, come here, come in here soon, or something. Yeah, because she was kind of mumbling over her words, but I put on closed caption, and that's what it said. She said, I may have a word to say, come in here soon. Girl, you got a word to say? What's going on? Is she fighting some demons in her head? What's going on with Nell? Because I'm like, girl, is something happening that you need to talk about? Just spill it out. You ain't, don't hold back. Spill it. She said, but I'm good. And I said to her, girl, if you have a problem with anybody, if you have a problem with any of them at all, you would know it. Nell said she's not good with holding back how she feels. Really? I think that I don't know if she's deflecting or reflecting. I don't know what Nell is doing, because are you trying to tell us something and you're just not telling it? I don't get it. Sam Baby Doll, what's going on? What does she have to announce that she is not holding it? Exactly. That's what I kept thinking. Why was it an announcement? Girl, talking about I'm not holding. Everybody else said, oh, we agreed. And all of a sudden she goes, I'm not holding a grudge against anybody. And everybody's like, okay. Yeah, so she said she's not good with holding back how she feels. And Tisha said, well, that's good to know, because honey, I told Kimmy, I don't know about the Fletchers. And I actually concur. I don't know about them Fletchers, because what they got going on? You got Chris over here saying that Maurice and Marceau were talking about signing NDAs. You got Nell over here saying that, asking them about how they felt about what Martell said, and Destiny, red flags for Destiny. Girl, what's going on with y'all? Then I don't know if they're trying to make Nell and Chris kind of the central point of the group, but they're gonna have to pick it up, because right now they looking real strange. They looking strange to me. They looking real strange to me, because say what you mean and mean what you say, or don't say it at all. Period. Tisha brings up the fact that Chris made a statement about the NDA. Nell said, well, I'm standing by my man. Well, girl, I hope you would stand by your man. You married to him. And so Kimmy speaks up and she said, Maurice felt away about what Chris said. And then Nell had said she was bothered by the fact that Maurice felt away, because she said she didn't have any issues with Maurice. And that she would have to, that she said we'll have to speak about it. So I put a question mark. Who are you gonna speak to? You speaking to Chris about what he said, or do you want to speak to Maurice about how he feels? Again, Nell beating around the bush, not being very straightforward. Just girl, what are you talking about? It's pretty much what I want to know. And I put in my notes, not sure who she's going to be speaking to, but she said was going to speak about it. Hello, Alicia. Thanks for joining the live. Please feel free to interact, like the live, because I just want to have a good time down here. Just have some fun with these recaps. Tisha said, what are we going to do next? And so Trisha invites all the ladies to a cowgirl Western themed birthday party. And then in the next scene, Maurice meets up with Jalen. This part of the episode, you guys, it bothered me, and not in a good way. And but we're gonna talk about it, because I think it needs to be talked about. I think that stepdads, stepmoms really have to take into consideration about other people's feelings, of the children that you enter into their lives' feelings. I think Jalen, although he seemed a little bit nervous, he seems like he's a shy young man. I think his sentiments were conveyed. I think that he actually made a point about what he meant. Um, so we're gonna go on and dive into it. Maurice meets up with Jalen, and they meet up at a Billards. They play some pool, and Jalen's talking about leaving Huntsville. And Maurice asked her, why do you want to leave? And he said, I've been here all my life. And I just want to maybe try something different. Jalen is working on a rental property. So apparently, I know him and Kimmy were kind of doing some investments together. So maybe this is one of the investment properties that they're doing. And he said he was, they had an issue with the HAZVAC, but someone's coming out to work on the HAZVAC and get it going. Jalen has been applying at different jobs. He's changed career paths because, as we know, previously he was working at Black as a general manager, or was he the general manager or the manager? One or the other. But he's changed career paths and he's now an IT specialist. We all know that, Jalen went to college. He has a degree, and I'm not sure what his degree is in, but it's good to know that he is in computers because IT specialists make good money. He has an interview for a job, and the job is in Colorado. Jalen said he's trying to figure out a new path. And he's hesitant about the family business. Again, back to the fact that Maurice asked him, why do you want to move away? And he said, I've been here my whole life. I grew up here. My mom raised me here. And apparently he went to college there at the university. So I guess he just wants to, spread his wings, fly, and to see if maybe there is more out in the world to see. And I kind of agree with that. A lot of people that I know who are raised in the South, for some reason or another, always want to venture somewhere else to try something different. And I think that's a good thing, and it should be applauded. I think that Maurice asking him why may be in the vein of Kimmy, because this is Kimmy's only child. I believe Maurice has other children, but I believe this is Kimmy's only child. And I'm sure him leaving will be impactful to her. Sad and baby though, I was glad to see that Jalen told Maurice how he really felt. He was trying to be nice about it as he chose his words wisely. He did. And that's why I said that it really kind of touched my heart, because he was, to me, sounded very honest, very, very honest. Jalen said he felt like Maurice would make him do things when they were growing up that he wouldn't make Monster do. I don't even like calling that baby Monster, Maurice Jr. So he said like they could be sitting in the house and Maurice would ask him to do things, and Maurice Jr. would be sitting right there and he'd walk right by him. It wouldn't ask, didn't make him do that does make makes young people feel a certain type of way, that you maybe make one person do something and not make the other one do something. My daughter told me one day, she was like, you made me wash dishes. And I said, because you never fuss back. The other ones was like, I had to pull teeth almost to get them to wash dishes. And she said, maybe I should have started fussing back. So as an adult, I realized that maybe I should have been more vigilant about you getting there and wash these dishes, or else you're going to lose X, Y, and Z. But yeah, I definitely know that does make kids feel a certain way. Maurice said, as a parent, you parent each child differently. And he said it apparently worked. And I put, dude, are you listening to yourself? Because you have a young man here saying that he felt like you treated him differently. So apparently whatever you thought you were doing, it didn't work. Not like you thought it did. You can tell that Kimmy taught Jalen manners and how to, yes. And I think Maurice, in the scene with him and Marsau, he mentions how she raised him, and I thought that was nice too. Maurice asked Jalen, did you feel a difference in love? Did you feel that you were not loved? I believe is what his exact words. And he said, yeah. He said, because He's your actual son. I'm not. And that is kind of what I kind of got in my feelings. I was like, oh my God, this is deep. Um, and I think Maurice kind of took a big gulp back too with okay, okay, maybe I did not. But then he got defensive. Instead of maybe listening, Maurice got really defensive. Jalen said he felt like Maurice loved Maurice Jr. more because that was his biological son. Maurice said when Kimmy told him that Jalen looked up to Marshawn as a father figure, but Maurice as a homeboy, he said he felt like a kick in the stomach. And I think at that moment, Maurice should have stopped talking and really listened to what Jalen had to say. Because I don't think just by judging what Jalen was saying, how he carefully chose his words, how he his mannerisms, his behaviors, you could tell he wasn't trying to hurt anybody. He was just trying to be very honest. And Shore say, yep, you can see it in his face, Maurice. Yeah, Maurice was hurt. He was definitely hurt by it. But the way he responded to me, he could have what's the word I want to use? He could have maybe taken the moment to explore Jalen's thoughts more instead of becoming defensive, because he became defensive immediately. I mean, when I say immediately, he jumped on the defense like, ah. And I was like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Because you could scar him and he'd never want to say anything else to you about any of this again. Symmetry. I love the whole storyline. It's real life. People experience this dynamic every day. Every day. Like I told you, me and my oldest daughter had a conversation about washing dishes as young people. And you maybe wash it more than anybody else. And I thought, me personally, that I made everybody wash it the same amount. But she doesn't see it that way. So as as a parent, I had to apologize and I had to eat that one. I have learned to let her vent and be like, okay. Maybe I did make you wash dishes more than anybody else. But if you let the other ones tell it, I made them wash it. So child, I just let them talk and I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. And be done with it. Sad baby doll. Maurice may not have given Jalen time and attention. Maurice probably took up time with him. Marceau, I'm sorry. Probably, there you go. And I believe we hear more of that when we get to the part where Marceau actually talks about his relationship that he had with him and how it actually came to be that he thinks that he saw him as a father figure based on that. Let's see, where was I at? He said as a parent, you feel like if being too hard doesn't work, you want to loosen up some. But it didn't actually mention about him loosening up at all, that he stayed hard. He said your formative years, your parents are always trying to make sure that they get it right. Maurice said parents want their children to do better than them. And then he said, where did I fail? Which I think was good that he kind of took accountability at that moment. I just wish that he would have allowed Jalen to express his feelings a little bit more. Jalen said Maurice did help him learn a lot of things. He said he taught him how to change out a toilet, how to change his first tire, how to change out a dishwasher. He said, but Maurice was more like a mentor. So imagine your stepfather teaching you all these things, but he's just teaching it to you. He never develops that bond. He never tries to break that glass wall and cultivate a father to son or dad to son relationship. I believe that's what I took it as. And I'm not really sure, but we could discuss that. If y'all didn't think it, took it, you didn't take it like that, but I took it as though he felt like, because you did teach me these things, that I felt more like you were a trainer, a mentor, not someone who actually was a part of my love language, someone who actually loved me. He said, but while working with Marcel, he gravitated to him more because of the father figure aspect that Marcel gave. And I can believe that, because although Marcel is very condescending, you could tell that he's very active in his children's life. He has developed that relationship. Y'all, again, I'm sitting in the living room. My husband just cranked up his loud truck, so give him a minute. He's about to drive off, and I got the door open, letting the sunshine in. So just give me one moment, and I promise you that truck is gonna leave. Maybe not, but I'm gonna talk anyway. Maybe I could talk over it. And again, I feel like that Marceau, although he is condescending, I really believe he has those father attributes that young men need. We don't always see it, but we also heard last week that MJ said, my dad is like a pillar in my life. That means a pillar is something that is strong, because it goes straight up and down. It's something that is central in your life, and that means a lot. You can lean on a pillar. You can, prop myself up. We talk about lean on me. That is, you definitely can lean up against a pillar. So I really think that part of the story of Jalen talking to Maurice, he should have really heard clearly. But I think he heard it and got upset a little bit. But we'll talk about that too. Jalen said he was trying not to get his hopes up when he met Maurice, because he was with his mom, right? And I want to unpack this as well. He said he didn't want to get disappointed if it didn't work out. And I took from that, I'm not sure how many men Kimmy dated, but before she met Maurice and they got married. But I took it as though he didn't want to get close to him because he felt like he wouldn't be around at that moment. In that moment, when I say these were very raw emotions, very raw conversation, that was really good. This is real life. People deal with this on a daily basis. Maurice said children that you get into relationships through marriage are done by choice. And he said he chose him. I chose this situation. But you got to do more than do lip service. You got to do some action. Love is an action word, right? So it's a verb and a noun. With love, you got to put some action behind it. I can tell you I love you all day, but if I never show you love, then are you actually going to believe me? Probably not. Next scene was Ken meets up with Will and Chris at Wicker Barbershop and Lounge. I was like, where they cut hair at? Because this looked just like a lounge. It don't look like there's nobody in there cutting hair, but it's a barbershop and a lounge. Maybe there's two sides to it. I'm not really sure. Really nice place. Ken walks in and they talk at the beginning. They just kind of, chit-chatting around. And they talk about Lance, and because originally Will apparently thought that Chris had pain at the gym, but Ken interjected and said, no, it was Lance. It was his son. He said, well, he does very good work, which is, I guess, a good thing. But Chris says, well, his mama needs him to come over there and do some work for her, and he's not doing it. And so Kim mentions, well, maybe it was because, it was the money. Maybe it's because he got paid. He was like, the money's the same over here. So we'll see where that goes. Let's see what we're talking about that we haven't talked about. Symmetry. This was some real barbershop girl. That's what I said. This was some real barbershop talk. Like when I say these storylines are they're giving. If you're not getting anything from this, it's because you're not paying attention. Because these storylines are giving. Um, Ken said he needs to talk to someone about Marquez and their issues. Marquez just walked into my house. Ken and Will says, "Where were you at?" And he said, "I wasn't there. I was on the road." And Will kind of was like, "Okay." I think Will is probably going to be a great addition. And maybe that's the other couple because I heard there was another couple coming. Maybe Will's the other couple. I don't know who his significant other is, but I'm here for Will because he's nice looking eye candy. Um, he says Ken talked about the physical altercation between him and Marquez and what they had been dealing with, what they dealt with during that per se. And then they really get into a deep dive into men's conversations, what I would say. He said, Will asked him, what are you going to do when Marquez pops back up? Because he's going to pop back up. I thought that was a great question. Sam Baby Doll, I like Will, the voice of reason. Oh, I like Will too. Like I said, he's a voice of reason. And girl, he's eye candy as well. So I think we could stand to look at him. He said, what are you going to do when Marquez pops back up? Because he's going to pop back up. And he said, Ken is over here being defensive. Well, I've never had to deal with him up until now. He's never been around. Da, 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 da. He's spitting off these irrelevant facts. And Will says, why deal with Marquez anyway? You ain't trying to marry him. Very, very sound information. I don't know if Ken was listening, but he should have been. There's one of those times when you probably should have hushed and just listened. Ken was getting heated with Chris and Will at that moment. Ken said they never had to deal with Marquez because he was never around. Yet he's not putting, but yet he's dealing with him. I think Will even said that, but yet you're dealing with him. And he said, Adam Marquez, they don't have any problems. Do I believe that? Nah, I don't believe that. Will is being very honest and open with Ken, is what I put in my notes. He asked Ken if he thought it was a challenge. If he thought that being with Trisha was a challenge. Hello, Queen Script. Thanks for joining. Oh, honey, I am so glad to see your face. I love me some Queen Script, y'all. I love everybody, but I love me some Queen Script. She is the voice of reason. Believe it or not, she is the voice of reason. He said he wanted to know if he thought it was a challenge. And you know what? I had never thought about it that way. But maybe for Ken, it is a challenge. Maybe because, they said his previous relationship was almost similar, not as, I don't think the woman was still married, but had been in a relationship. I'm glad you caught me too. Had been in a relationship as well. So, and he ended up, I think, still has a relationship with that child, or it still gets visitation rights, but it's not even his biological child. So maybe Ken does think this is a challenge. This is a married woman, and maybe he's that guy who's always trying to fix something, piece to piece, pick up the pieces and put them back together. Will asked him, he said, this is a puzzle. It's a difficult puzzle. He said, sometimes you have to he said, yeah, but I'm up for it. He said, sometimes you have to put the puzzle back in the box and move on. And believe it or not, there may be some bitter truth, some hard bitter truth and some facts. Again, I don't tell anybody to break up, but at this point, Trisha's still married to Marquez. And I don't believe they're even divorced as of today. I believe they're all still, she's still married to him as of right now. I don't know that for a fact, but I believe it is. I believe they are. Let's see what Satin Baby Doll is talking about. I couldn't do it because when you're in a relationship with a married person, you still have to show the other person respect, even if you don't want to. Yeah. And what does respect look like when you are living with that person You're living with that person's wife. You are supporting that person's wife. What does that look like? What does that respect look like? And I think that may be something that they need to look at in the long run. I think Ken needs to really sit back and evaluate his life. Will said he looked at it, right? He said, and I tried to balance it, and the balances are off. They're off. This is not even. This is not even playing field. And he said it's not really even at all, is what Will said. And Ken said, but he loved Trisha. And I believe he does love Trisha. And he asked Will, he said, what would you do? Will said, if I was if it was me, he said the whole situation with Trisha would have been a thing of the past. And believe it or not, most men would have walked away. Most men would not have stayed with Trisha. And she's been married. I don't know what exactly the years are that she's been with Ken. But whatever the years are, if you really want to marry this woman, you know that she can't marry you while she's married to someone else. Anything else is considered polygamy, right? So you need a divorce decree before you can move forward with marriage. And Ken wants to marry Trisha, even though Trisha has said she's really not interested in marriage. So I'm not sure what the end game is for Ken and Trisha. But I'm gonna tell you this: just me looking at it from the outside in, it doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. And again, I don't think most men would even endure it for a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't think they would do that at all. Queen Script is no longer the same. The absentee dad has returned. Right. Even if he returned only for, I'm rolling my eyes because I'm thinking, for a short period of time, he still has returned. And this is still this man's wife, and these are his children. Although I believe family is what you make of it, Ken is like a part of the family now. But so is Marquez until there's a divorce decree in place. That's a lot of sad baby doll. You hear me? That's a lot of baggage. And you would think that, again, most men aren't up for that type of challenge or baggage. They're not going to deal with a woman that they really want to be with who refuses to move on. Men normally cut their losses and move forward. Example, Simon Guabadia. He said he kept a moving truck on speed dial. That says a lot. Most men don't stick around. Ken likes it that way. Queen Script is saying Ken likes it that way. Likes it the way it was. It was a fantasy. This is reality. And that's what I don't think he gets. That the reality is that you're with somebody's wife. And I think once you think about the very fact that this one belongs to someone else, she doesn't really belong to me. She could never be solely mine because she's literally married to someone else. Hopefully that reality sets in and he put some boundaries with Trisha. He wants to set boundaries with Marquez, but he needs to set boundaries with Trisha. And that's just how I feel about it. He will be Uncle Ken. Exactly. He's already Uncle Ken. Queen Script. Ken likes it. We've already talked about that. The fantasy versus the reality. And unfortunately, I don't know what that's going to look like for Ken in the future. I think Ken's a nice guy. I think he's a good-looking guy. Why he chose to be with Trisha and try to do whatever they're doing, I don't know. But I don't see him and Trisha having a future as husband and wife because of this divorce just not happening, right? Or at least it hasn't happened. Next scene is Tisha and Marcel. They meet up with Kimmy and Maurice at Kimmy and Maurice's home. Y'all see that dining room set they had? That white was absolutely gorgeous. I think I'm gonna steal that picture. That white dining room set is beautiful. I don't want it. I don't want a white dining room set, but I just thought it was so pretty in that house. Their house is. They said that they were living in an Airbnb, so I don't know if that's their house that they were at or if they were still at an Airbnb because they were getting their house remodeled. Let's see what this next one is. Sad baby doll. I think Ken thinks just because they are shacking, Trish belongs to him. Ken might be. Well, girl, he might just be. He might just be. It's very rare that you find men that are, but there are men that they get whipped and they waddle in their whipness or their whipping. So that's a good way to think about it. That's a very good way to think about it. But yeah, that white dining room set, oh, I thought it was so pretty, so pretty. They come in, they are gonna have dinner apparently, and they start the conversation talking about MJ and MJ getting his honor society information. Honor society, when you're graduating high school, is such a big thing. Here they do big ceremonies for the students who are honor society members. One of my little godsons graduated this past year. He was an honor society. It was all on his what they were cloaks, I guess. It was on. He had one that said honor society on one side and some other little accolades he had. I'm so proud of my little booby. So proud of him. He's going off to college this year, and I just pray God's hedge of protection around him right now, even as I speak, that he is enjoying his newfound freedom in college and staying in a dormitory with his cute little self. Anywho, moving back to this conversation. Talk about MJ getting his honor society information, and MJ told him, he said, now I can update my college application for the University of Michigan. He really wants to go to the University of Michigan. Tisha said that she believed that because of DEI that his application had not been accepted yet. They also talk about the very fact that he had the, of course he's a high scholar, that he had the merit to go to University of Michigan. They couldn't understand, what it was. And Tisha and Marcel, as parents, you're kind of like, oh, maybe it's this reason, that reason. But I think he got accepted into several colleges, although we know where he chose to go to school at. They show a scene where Marcel and Jalen are talking, and Jalen's saying that he thought Marcel was that he felt like he was a father figure to him. And Marcel looked surprised. He's like, and I thought it was a touching scene. I thought it was very nice to give someone accolades, right? Get them their honor, give them their flowers, especially when they've touched your life. Jalen, I'm not sure how old he was when he became a part of the Scott family unit. But to know that he had someone that he could talk to, even if it was more so, I think that's a great thing. I think that's a really good thing. Marcel said, well, when he told me, he said, what do you consider Reese? And he said, my relationship with Maurice is different because he thinks of you. He said, my relationship with Maurice is different. He said, but and Maurice screams out, let me back up. He said, my relationship with Maurice is different. And then Maurice screams out across the table, it's because he thinks of you as a dad. I thought that was crazy. So Marcel looks at him. I put in my notes, Maurice is in his feelings, but Marcel looks at him and he said, I think a father figure is a little bit different than being a dad. Marcel said that he was a little concerned with the conversation that he had with Jalen. He said, and so Maurice was like, well, what do you mean? He said, the very conversation about Jalen, and he said the word monster is concerning. He said Marcel said growing up, Maurice said that growing up there was a hierarchy. Apparently, their families quite a bit larger than one or two children. And he said, your older kids, the younger kids look up to the older kids. And I think that does go to say I'm a younger kid and I always looked up to my older siblings. Said, but Kimmy responds and she said she always felt like Maurice treated Jalen differently. And then Maurice chimes in and said Jalen was an was raised excellent as a child. So he kind of gave Kimmy props on the way she raised him. And I also think Jalen was raised very well because Jalen is an all around good kid. He's very well mannered. You don't hear him raising his voice. He seems kind of calm at all times. I never forget the time that they were talking about Destiny flirting with Jalen, and Jalen said, I'm the cougar tamer. His mama said, what? He said the cougar tamer. I always think that every time I look at him, I think there go the cougar tamer, because Jalen is a very nice looking young man. Kimmy said, she said, I said that before Monster ever came here, that she felt like Maurice treated Jalen differently. And Marceau said, it's hard enough to talk to you sometimes. He said, I'm only trying to deliver to you what I thought was concerning, regarding the conversation he had with Jalen. Marceau said, I grew up with the golden child, and Jalen is growing up with the golden child 2.0. Maurice and Marceau. Maurice stands up and says Marceau sounds like Chris Fletcher. And Marceau said, you sound pathetic. Sibling rivalry. They start arguing. And I put in my notes, Maurice was very defensive, not sure if he was even listening to what Marceau was trying to convey. And then Maurice says, Marceau, you lie. And he said, I lie. He said, yeah, you do lie. You lie all the time. I thought that was crazy. I thought it was wild. But I also thought that this was a great episode. I love the very fact that we were able to navigate and explore some family dynamics. I think the dynamic of Jalen and Maurice is a great. There you go, Satin Baby Doll. This is exactly what was going on. He was only listening to respond. He was not listening to learn, to explore, to actually change, or to even bring words of comfort. He was only listening to, let me tell you this, because I really feel like Maurice feels slighted. He feels like, I raised him. He's living in my household, but he's looking at you as a father figure, and I should be the father figure that he looks at. That was the end of the episode. Again, I think it was a great episode. I think that I'm here to hear more about MJ going to college, more about Jalen and Maurice Jr.'s, I guess their reality of living with Maurice in the home as their father, or as the dad or the male figure of the home. I'm also trying to figure out what's going on with Nell. I don't know. I really, again, I enjoyed this episode. It was very heartfelt. I want Nell to, in the next episode, to kind of smooth it out. I think that this next episode is going to be good as well. I also noticed we didn't see Martell at all, and neither did we see Destiny in this episode. So maybe we'll see them next week. Maybe not. But you guys, if you have any questions, you put it down in the chat. We can keep this discussion going a little bit further down in the chat. And I will see you in the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe. I took my whole self off stage. I'm crazy. But please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care. Bye-bye. If no one told you today they love you, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. See you next time.